Hey, Soul Tribe. Thank you for joining us live tonight. I've got my gorgeous friend Sherry Divban here, and I just got goosebumps as soon as I just introduced you because I'm so
Oh,
excited
that's
for
good.
this topic. But yeah, I just felt my crown chakra just start to tingle as soon as we connected with the audience and started to go live. How are
Oh,
you
wow.
doing?
That's so cool. I'm good. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I love hanging out with you always, and it's been a while since we've done a nice little chat together. So I was looking forward to tonight, and I think it's a very special and necessary topic. So I think this is just divine timing, and so thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. And when I saw your show the other day, which let me just pop this up. So, this is the title of our show. So, we're going to be talking about why people are leaving your life. And for those of you that are maybe just watching for the first time or connecting, let me just pop up Sherry's website as well. So, you do intuitive psychic sessions, and I would say you also do transformational work too, because it's more that you're able to work with your client. And I know you have a lot of clients that also will rebook and kind of work through things with you too. But you also have an amazing school that you're setting up. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about what you do? And I can click on anything that you like as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I feel like my progression from going from like a Reiki master, I feel like that was the gateway energy healing. And the reason I call it transformational healing is over the years, through my practice, it's become more quantum. And then I started being able to see galactic beings. And then I started doing soul readings to help people look at their soul's journey from a macro perspective to help them understand why they are here in this life. Everyone has the same question. What's my life purpose? Why am I here? Why am I struggling? Why am I going through all of this? And when I do sessions with people, oftentimes we're able to put the puzzle pieces together as to why, and what their main goal is, and what their soul is here to contribute, and how, and what's the soul agreements they have are, and the purpose of them. So I work every day with clients of all ages. I do specialize with children, but I also work with adults. I do, pregnancy coaching. I do animal communication. I kind of do it all. But
Yeah.
it's really more quantum and like soul, looking at everything from a soul's perspective, not necessarily just you as the individual in this life, because I feel like we can get so much more information when we look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, that's so true. And yeah, if you guys haven't had a session with Sherry or myself, and I should pop mine up quickly. So you'll see on mine, solreta.com, there's the book now button, and it'll take you through to all the different types of readings. There's also love readings available. And there is a new session that I'm working on bringing out that will be very different from what we've had in the past as well. So I look forward
Ooh,
to
fun.
introducing that to you guys. Yeah, it's going to be very fun.
Yay.
And we also have the potions. Tonight I'm drinking I Am That Witch. And we've got the hypnotic subliminal meditations as well, which have been very popular. And just to give you guys a hint on the new session, it will be linked in with something connected to do with this. But I just want to pop up the show that really sparked me to reach out because I've had a break. After doing readings for 30 years, I thought, you know what? I think I deserve a little break. And so I've been enjoying family time, which has been lovely, working on new projects. But this was the show that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing this in my client sessions. This one down here in the middle around relationships. So, frequencies, relationships, how we connect as a species, and just everything that you were saying in that show. I was just
Yeah.
nodding along and just going, oh my gosh, I'm seeing this in my sessions as well. So it was just
Yeah.
incredible. Thank you for joining us. It's so lovely to have you with us,
Hi,
Sarah. And
Sarah and
Larry,
Suzanne and Larry.
Suzanne, thank you for joining us. So I guess the vision that I was seeing with this topic is a pendulum. I'm not sure if I might even have one here. Let's physically demonstrate it. So what I'm seeing in sessions is a lot of like a pendulum swing type effect. So say we've got two people, whether they're friends, whether they're family or relationship energy. And what we're sort of seeing at the moment is like a lot of our childhood traumas. And what we're sort of seeing is, I guess you would call it more kind of like the trauma or the emotional body sort of swinging like a pendulum. And sometimes it'll stick to other people. And then you've got two traumas sort of swinging and, you know, vibrating together. So what's really important that I'm seeing in a lot of my client sessions that Spirit's guiding around is really independently learning how to still our pendulum. So that when we come up against people that are in their childhood stuff sort of vibrating or, you know, trying to reach out, and essentially it's a solar plexus cording that we're seeing. So we're moving up more into this higher vibration of heart and crown chakra energy and trying to move out of the lower chakras, out of fear, out of needing to control things to feel safe. So yeah, that's the vision that Spirit wanted to talk about, to sort of like open up the conversation, is how can we kind of calm our inner pendulum, work with calming our nervous system, start to like regulate ourselves without externally looking outside for ourselves. And when we do that, we actually attract from a whole new higher vibrational frequency, and people can't cord into you and have these negative attachments. It's just like whatever it is that's getting thrown at you just doesn't stick anymore.
Yeah, I love that analogy actually that you gave with the pendulum. It's so true, and that's a really perfect way. I love simplifying things. That's like my favorite thing. I work with children, so like my specialty is this simplification. Like, how can I simplify it so a child can understand it or understand it? And so I love that. That was perfect. You know what I'm seeing, and I actually did a video on this morning. Excuse me, because I felt like there was so much more to say than what I had said the other day, because like you and I both are the same. We see a multitude of clients a week, and so we're going to see a lot of overlaps, a lot of similarities, and then we'll see some differences. But I feel like I see things in like waves or surges, and then I'm like, when I see something enough, I'm like, okay, I have to set this time aside to do a special video and let people know that they're not alone. And clearly, if I'm seeing it with all of these people, many others are probably feeling it too. So let's talk about it. And one of the things that I mentioned today that goes along with what we're talking about right now is really this interpersonal relationship is clearly coming to the surface for a reason. And part of that is we all have heard of quantum entanglement, right? I think that we're in the process of quantum detanglement. And it came to me this morning, like, this is a big part of it. So like think, and I use the analogy of like, because I have a daughter, like, brushing their hair when they're in mats. It's like, they're screaming and you're like trying to brush out the mats and it's like impossible to get the bird's nest from on, anyways, that's quantum entanglement. That's like the mess that we are as a collective of just all of these traumas and all of these things and loop cycles. And I think that we are detaching from a lot of that. And it's a good thing. It's a detanglement. It's a detachment as part of our evolution, as part of the clearing and cleansing. But the side effect of that, however you want to look at it, in good, bad, or indifferent, we are dividing and becoming more individualized, and therefore we are separating more from the people around us and starting to notice that we're not in the same frequency as the people that we are normally surrounded with. And it's actually kind of sad because people are losing childhood friends, like friends they've known their whole life, or family members, or people are suddenly at an impasse with their spouses where they just can't move forward. And that's really hard for them. Family, like, parent and child are experiencing that same thing. It's happening on all facets of relationships. So it's not just romantic, it's everywhere. And so I feel like that's that quantum detanglement where you're really figuring out who you are as an individual as you heal and really pay attention to what you like, how you thrive, and what you're passionate in. Finally, like, we put ourselves first. And then we start to realize, oh, wow, I don't really have anything in common with you anymore. And now we're forced with that decision of, do we let them go, or do we spend less time with them? Or do we put up boundaries? And that's a really awkward place to be. And it's not fun for anybody. I don't think anybody's enjoying this part because nobody wants to lose friends unless they were friends that have hurt you. Obviously, it's time to cut the cord there. But it's not, nevertheless, it's still not fun no matter what.
Yeah. I love hanging out with you. It just, your analogies, that quantum detanglement, that's exactly what we're seeing. And I keep getting spirit show me stairs as well. So it's like someone moving up in, say, like to the third step in terms of frequency or vibration. And then what I'm sort of seeing, like when we talk about that pendulum analogy, it's like the one that's moving up to that third step, they're kind of becoming balanced, grounded, and centered in their own auric field, because a lot of this is to do with the aura and the chakras is what I'm seeing energetically. There's like a new, I would say, like a higher plasma charge that those that are elevating are taking on. So we're seeing brighter lights in the aura, to
Mhm.
simplify. And what we're sort of seeing with the one that's maybe still on like the first step, there's that little inner child kind of calling out or like wanting to try and cord or attach into the one that's moving up higher. So there is a lot of growth that's still happening. So some relationships, you know, if the person on the lower step can start to move through their stuff and start to filter and go, hold on a minute, do I actually believe that about myself anymore? Or do I believe that, you know, all this old childhood blueprint, essentially it's an upgrade of the blueprints, and we're choosing what we want to take to the next round or the next level. But definitely feeling that quantum detanglement is what I'm seeing in client sessions too. And we're also got, you know, we can also still call on our guides and our angels, but a lot of this I'm finding too is really kind of an alignment or a centering with God, with our higher self. So I think the more that we can connect in and open up our physical temple vessel to allow more of our soul frequency here, the more we're kind of filling out this aura instead of, you know, just being a slither of soul energy in the aura. We're really, you know, having this beautiful expansion at the same time. So it's kind of like a birth or a labor. There is, you know, we're going through
Mhm.
the labor pains right now.
Yes, I've heard that so much lately. You're so on point with that. And male or female doesn't even matter. It's just like we're going through the growth pains of, you know, birthing new versions of yourself. It has nothing to do with whether you're a male or female. It's just becoming a better version of you, whatever that looks like. And there's no competition. And that's the thing where people get hung up on is everyone is in this programmed belief system of being in competition. Like they see what the person next to them is doing and they're like, well, I want to be at that level. And I keep trying to tell people,
Yeah.
slow down, that you're speaking from ego. Just who cares what your friend is doing? You're on your own
Yeah.
path and your own speed, and there are variables within your path that are not in theirs. And maybe they're going to get to a point where they slow down and then you might pass them. And either way, it doesn't matter. It's not a race, it's not a competition, because that's that division mentality. We got to get out of that mentality of we're competing with each other. And the problem with with that analogy that you mentioned with the steps, the only issue that I'm finding, or the main issue I should say, is that if we have these friends, whatever they are to us, in our relationship that are like a couple steps below, if they're not willing to put in the work and they're projecting, and they are what in essence what's happening is they are anchoring in that step and they're pulling us back down. And that's
Yeah.
what I'm seeing happening to a lot of my clients, where they're being forced with that hard decision of, I got to cut them off. I got to let them go, because if I don't, they are going to take me down. And
Yeah.
I don't want to, because I've worked so hard to get here, that every time I hang out with them, they're draining, they siphon my energy, they're full of drama, or they bring drama. Every time I'm around them, it's negative energy. And if you're really trying to grow and bring yourself out of that frequency, and you're continuously around people who pull you back in, then you
Yeah.
have to get yourself first and be able to say, you know what? And this is the quote I swear I've been using for like, I don't know, 5, 6 years now. It's not by, I say it's not by forever. It's just by for right now. Like that's like, I swear, my famous quote I've always, and,
I
and,
love
and you
that.
know what? It may be by forever. I don't know. But the point is, I always tell people it's not by forever. It's just by for right now. You don't know.
Yeah.
And you have to just be willing to just cut the cord, put yourself first, create boundaries. And really, right now, our minds are so valuable. Like it's such a valuable currency because that's the part of us they're trying to hijack, our consciousness.
Mm.
So we have to not only honor that, but we have to like guard it like a temple, like it's sacred, like
Yeah.
gold or whatever, some valuable, whatever you want to, currency you want it to the analogy to be, because that's what they've been trying to hijack or have hijacked for so long, that we got to maintain control, and whatever we need to do that, maintain the sanctity of that sacred space, which is our mind. We have to. We have to do
Yeah.
it.
It's interesting. As you're talking about that, the spirit's also showing me a beautiful vision, but I can hear it at the same time. It's there's almost like a jarringness that we're feeling and experiencing when we come back to being around that lower vibration. So spirit was showing me, the old analog radios where you've got like all of the different tunes and frequencies and the different stations. I keep getting shown it's like we're tuning into this beautiful, peaceful, kind of like centered experience where our soul feels connected and we feel this beautiful sense of peace. I just keep getting spirit show me it's like listening to like our affirmations and everything that we're growing into and becoming. And then all of a sudden, someone comes along that's on the old wavelength or the old frequency, or they're on the frequency of their traumas and the ego and projecting and trying to cord and attach to other people to have their ego, or whether it's to have things validated for them, whether it's victimization or whatever it is. And imagine you're in this beautiful centered station listening to this amazing meditation music, and someone comes in, all of a sudden someone's like turning your station and you're going back to, it's like fuzz and that kind of like white noise, where the stations are leaping. Spirits keep showing me, I can literally hear them doing like the station hop. But you also said something too that was interesting about the ego. And there was something that I heard last night. I'm probably saying it a little bit different, but what Spirit was sort of showing me, it was someone talking about like neurodivergence and about how a lot of people that are more sort of like in the neurodivergent mindset, whether it's, autism or ADHD, or just sort of, I would even say the group of us that was awake to a lot of the programming that was non-programmable. It's more that they operate from a soul level. Whereas what we sort of see with those that have maybe followed some of the pattern, maybe more operating out of ego. And I don't mean ego in, a bad sense, but more kind of ego in terms of not realizing the limitation and things. So it's more that the soul level was the one that's sort of crying out for this change or like warning us. And I thought that was really interesting that they were sort of talking about more neurodivergence living from that soul aspect. And I really resonated with that. And I think that's what we see now is that, when we look at the forerunners or indigos or crystals or rainbow children, which are adults as well. The first wave was supposedly 1980. I've seen clients that far surpassed that too, that were here, as pallbearers before that. But I think that's what we're sort of seeing is these beautiful beings that are really, really soul infused, know who they are on a deeper level, know right from wrong. And they're the ones holding this light. And I see this as double layers of gold in the aura and holding more of a plasma charge. So yeah, we can physically, on an auric level, start to see these people shifting and changing for the better.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been screaming it from the rooftops for so long now. Like, neurodivergence is a beautiful gift. Like, stop shaming these children, stop labeling them, stop separating them and segregating them and making them feel like there's something wrong with them. Because we've been so programmed for so long that we have to fit in this box that the powers that were created, and they said somebody along the line created these, the rules, the book of rules, and this is what we follow, and this is what's normal, and this is what's right, and this is what's wrong. And I'm not talking about from a conscious high level perspective of like unification or the law of one. I'm talking about 3D rules and what they are trying to teach us as human beings. We are the way we are supposed to operate and be this like one track mind. And we've got these beautiful neurodivergent souls coming through. And like you said, I mean, they've been coming in for longer than, we could go back to the time of Yeshua. He could be like one of the first waves that came through, or even before Mary Magdalene. All the way back to Lamar. We could honestly go back as far as we could. And We've always had beautiful star seed ascended beings here, in the mix. But these children today, or at least really, I think compounded from the year 2000 to the present, with all these labels, are really the way showers and the out of the box thinkers, and they're multidimensional. So yeah, of course they're not going to sit still. Of course they're going to be a little bit more rebellious, or of course they're going to be hypersensitive, and all of these
Yeah.
things are not going to be quote unquote normal to your standards of what you've created as normal, but they're exceptional. And then now,
Mm.
as adults, actually, what's happening, and you just kind of touched upon this, I can't tell you how many adult clients I work with, and I'm talking about in their 60s and 70s, and they're like, Sherry, I think I'm autistic. I think I've got my whole life. And I'm like,
Yeah.
cool. That means that you've been special your whole life. You just,
Yeah.
you suppressed it because you were probably afraid to show who you truly are, because, you
Mm.
didn't want to be um, singled out, or put on medication, or thought,
Yeah.
you didn't want to be weird. But more and more people are self-diagnosing themselves as adults as, I think I have ADD. And I have this joke in my house with my kids where I'm like, literally all of us could be labeled with something. And I think
Yeah.
that's actually, I celebrate it in this house. I tell them it's a great thing. I said, don't let
Yeah.
anybody ever tell you that that's a bad thing. Don't. And I said, and if somebody tells you that, you come tell me, and I will talk to that person. You tell them, and you tell them, actually, I'm really special. That's what we should be
Yeah.
teaching these children. So when somebody tells them you're defined by this label, they should be saying, thank you so much. I know I'm really special and unique. Like, that's what these children should be taught. But of course, most of society hasn't gotten there yet. But I think we're working towards that.
Yeah. And I I think it is important that that the kids have that inner sense of confidence. And it's interesting. I just saw so when we talk about like innocence and inner sense, it's so similar, like the wording, just as I
Yeah,
was saying.
you're right.
But it's like we're keeping that beautiful connection that they have to source, that inner sense of being connected on a soul level. And it's really interesting that we have so much of that on the planet right now. And in our family, there's a lot of ADHD and dyslexia, and we just call it a touch of the tism. Like, we refer to it really affectionately, and we talk about, even my parents, like the little quirks, because they're sort of quote normal, conventional compared to, mainstream.
Right.
And then we're like, hold on a minute. Well, dad like certain fabrics, or, there's certain, foods in that my mom's like really adverse to. And we're like, oh yeah, there is a touch of the tism when you even look back into grandparents'
Mhm.
generations, or, the special cabinet of things that you can't touch that's like their collectibles, or, just little things like that. We
Yeah.
sort of start to see it. And I think in the old days, the survival need to mask was probably a lot higher. Whereas now we're sort of seeing that people can kind of like relax into their individuality a little bit more, and they don't sort of need that in terms of survival or fit in. Because that's what we sort of see too, that, with a lot of neurodivergence, that's trying to find your tribe, and trying to fit in is a big part of being, I would say, like a bigger soul, or, a star being or star person down here in the earth realm. And I can see my friend Eric here. Hey, Eric. So let me just read Eric's comment. So, how about, what order do I operate? Not, I have a disorder. What order do I want? And what do I do to reorder myself? Would that help? That's a really great way to sort of reflect and think about it too. And
Yeah.
I think it's also, we're looking for the world to come up and meet us, and to sort of match our needs and desires. But we actually, when we're talking about manifestation or creation, we actually need to create that order within first. So it's not to look or search outside of ourselves for the answers. And it's the same with some of these friendships and relationships and things that are shifting and changing. It's, to stop placing our need for comfort or our need for nurturing externally to ourselves. It's, what are we actually doing to give and to nurture to ourselves first? And I know myself personally, this year has been really transformative in terms of going to Pilates most days, and doing, a lot in terms of just, I always eat well, but it's just really like mind, body, and spirit. Have I meditated today? Have I gone to Pilates? Have I gone for a walk? And if I've done those couple of things, as well as like add on the affirmations or anything like that too, it's like I know that I've done my bit to keep moving up those stairs and to keep that vibration high. Have you got any tips for anyone that's sort of experiencing? I actually haven't even asked any of the questions. I've got like 10 questions written here. That's what I love about chatting with you. It's so we're just in the flow. So one of the questions I had for you was, so many people are saying, I don't feel like I fit into my old life anymore.
Yeah.
What do you feel like in terms of advice that you could give them?
Yeah. I actually did a video recently on my channel. I think it was called Am I Having an Identity Crisis or something like that? Or why are so many people having an identity crisis? And the reason I did that is for that exact question, because I am seeing with my clients on a consistent basis, people are having that exact conversation with themselves. Yeah. Like, who am I? Where do I fit in? I don't belong with, oh yeah, are you having an identity? Yeah. And I'm like, everybody is going through that. And I think it's a beautiful thing, actually, because what's happening is we're being forced to pay attention, number one. So we're not numbing ourselves or tuning out or distracting ourselves like we've been programmed to do with television and a beer at the end of the night, or going out to party, or whatever it is that they do to distract us. And we're really going, like, people are really doing the work. I'm noticing, especially from a few years ago versus like today. So when you go in that quiet space and you really start to evaluate what it is that you enjoy and your passions and your likes and your dislikes and your friend group, and like just evaluate all of the things. And I tell people, okay, now now make a list of those things next to it. Write down, is this me, or is this something that was programmed into me? Like, is this something that I was taught that is fun, but I don't necessarily, like, if I think about it, I don't really enjoy it that much, but I just do it. And start to evaluate all these things in your life. And what happens is you kind of have a spiral at first, because you're like, oh my God, I don't know who I am without any of these things. And you start to realize that a lot of us, greater than 50% of what we've done our whole life, is because, one, we were told we needed to, or number two, that's how it's always been done, or everybody else does it that way, so we just want to fit in, and we just kind of like mold to what's normal. And so this identity crisis I'm seeing among most people who are ready and willing to admit it, it's not a bad thing. It's like reevaluating, like, who am I as an individual? Like seriously, like, who is Sherry aside from spouse, aside from mom, aside from what I do for a living? I take time and I'm like, who am I? Like, what do I actually enjoy? Without all of the noise and all of the influence of what I've been taught and told and mentored my life to believe and to do and to feel, and what I've been told. And so I think the best way to navigate that is, number one, just go, like, put yourself through the experience of just going down the list and seeing, and make a tally, and really see, like, wow, you'd be surprised how many things that you check off on the list that you've done because you've been told to do it, or to believe it, or it's not really a passion of yours. And then you have the really cool opportunity to write a separate list and be like, okay, forget about money or anything. I mean, aside from like ridiculous things like, oh, I'd love to, teleport and fly. Well, we're not quite there yet, but like realistically, and let's say I had the money to do so, like, what would make me really happy? Like, what are my true passions? If I had the time, the space, the money, what would really make me happy? Even if you can't obtain it right now, it doesn't matter. That's not the point of the exercise. It's really just to get you thinking about, like, what brings Sherry joy? What do I really like, and what do I really not like that I'm pretending to like this whole time to fit in, and discard that. And then you really go through this reflection, and then you go through this period of, okay, I'm good enough. Like the I am deserving of all of this. I am and you self-validate. And like you said, you touched upon this already. We've been so programmed to seek validation outside of ourselves that very few people are capable of validating themselves, giving themselves the love that they need without receiving the validation outside from someone else. And I finally, and I'll admit, I'm 45 years old, and it took me to get to my 40s before I can admit that I could do that.
Yeah.
So it took me, and there are people that I work with in their 70s, 80s that still haven't gotten to that point. So again, it's no competition. I'm not trying to brag in any way, shape, or form, because there are people in their 20s that have already been able to do that. So again, I'm not saying that in comparison to anyone else, but to me, that's like, wow, that's like a lot of my life it took me to be able to get to that point. So for me, I'm thinking, gosh, that's really like, I'm on the slow bus, but again, that's just my experience. So we're all kind of getting to that place where we are reaching a point where I don't need outside validation. And you know what? It's the most empowering, amazing, euphoric feeling in the entire world when you realize and you have that epiphany that you don't care what anyone else in the world thinks of you. You still have respect. You still have integrity. You still have class. You still represent yourself with professionalism and respect of others. But I'm talking, you don't really care you're not validated externally. That is probably the most powerful place that a person can get to.
Yeah. Well, I sort of have been reflecting this year as well. And it's so funny because we're exactly the same age. So, I was thinking, oh, maybe I'm late to the party. But I think, we sort of have like what we feel maybe ego-wise, like this is over here in Australia because we have a thing called tall poppy syndrome over here, which is there's this weird mud crab type analogy, or they call it tall poppy, but there's some weird thing in Australia where success is not celebrated in the same way as it is in the States. It's almost like they pull each other back down. So like you're not allowed to stand up or succeed better than like the collective in some way. But I've been working a lot to do with like the self-love and everything too. And it's so interesting when you give it to yourself, because then you actually draw in people that are vibrating on that higher quality level. So the quality of people also changes around you too. And it was really interesting. You said about the blueprint. And it's funny because my partner and I were talking about this last night. We were sitting having dinner, and he said something about, he just made like an offhand comment, oh, only the good die young. And I'm like, hold on a minute. I said, do you actually believe that? And he's like, yeah. And I said, yeah, but when were you taught that? I said, is that an inherited blueprint? Did you learn that from great grandparents? Did you learn it from the school system? Did you learn it from Hayfield? And he sort of like stopped for a minute, and he's like, oh. And I'm like, you don't actually have to choose to believe that now. And I said, we have such beautiful examples of people that are old and wise and beautiful, amazing, good people. My parents, other people, and I was just sort of listing people around. And I think that's sort of where we're at too in terms of working together in relationships. It's being able to lovingly point something out without like attacking or, like pointing the finger. And it was funny because he did one for me. He's like, so do you realize like when you go into the bedroom, you like turn the lights on and off, and there's like maybe something that's programmed into you from childhood that you have to turn the lights off, when you leave a room, but then you might go straight back in there. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. And so this morning it's like, I went to go out the room, my hand hit the light, and I'm like, oh, I don't need to, because I'll probably be back in there in 5 minutes. So it's really interesting having that accountability buddy or partner to go, hold on a minute. Do I actually need this programming? How is it serving me? And we're sort of trying to do it for each other in, lots of little ways. It might not feel like it adds up, but what it does in terms of our neurology, if we start to look at all of these old little pathways that are fired and wired together, we can start to delete and prune the ones that are no longer important, making room for more important ones to come in. So we start to actually, when someone maybe gives us a new saying or a new belief, it's like, do I actually take that on as my own? Or is this something that's been programmed into our culture And I feel as Australians, we have a lot of things that are programmed culturally into us, but does it actually resonate anymore on a soul level? So we're changing relationship wise, but we're also sort of changing culturally at the same time and shedding that old blueprint, that old programming. And I think we're at a state where the awareness is sort of reaching maximum to what we've ever felt on this planet before. I really do feel we're at that glass ceiling like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory on that elevator riding up, and we're about to break through into something incredible and amazing.
Yeah. I totally agree. And, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I had another question for you, but if there's something you want to add, please do.
Well, I was just going to say, I believe it's all about balance too, because, in the United States here, we have something called extreme competitiveness. And growing up, I never resonated with that. Like, I've always been very laid back. I'm not a competitive person ever my whole life. Like, I can't tell you how not competitive I am, to the point where it drives my family crazy because they don't want to play games with me because I could care less if I win. So it's shocking to somebody like me growing up in such a competitive world, because they'll backstab you. They will lie, they will steal, they will do anything to compete against you. And that's something that never resonated with me. It's like uber competitive. Who's the best? Who has the most money? Who has the best car, the biggest house? And I'm just like, I grew up in this world feeling like I just don't fit into any of this. So, and you're over there on that side of the world where like people don't want to like outdo each other. And I'm over here in this part of the world where everyone's like outdoing each other, and in a vindictive, like really horrific way, not caring how they hurt people. And I'm like, gosh, there has to be a balance, right? Like, how can we help each other and be humble about it, but still celebrate the success? So like, if I am doing really well, let's say Sol and I are doing the same job, I'm going to be so excited for you if you are doing really well and maybe I'm not at the time. Because the way I look at things is, well, I must need a break right now, and she must be thriving and she must be at her peak. And then she's going to have a break at some point, and then I'm going to get an influx of people. And it's all about balance. There's never a competition. To me, I don't believe that, because we all have periods of rest, and we all have our peaks, and we have to give ourselves the grace, and we have to be humble about it and have some dignity. So I was just saying to that comment, neither extreme is good in my opinion. Like, we have to find some like nice little sweet spot of balance. That's all.
And I really resonate with what you're saying too. And it's funny, I've taught my kids since they were young, when someone's like maybe done well on a test, or, they won, a race or something like that, I've always sort of taught them to like celebrate things. So I know if my friends are doing well, or people around me in my community, there's always that sort of saying that I've had with the kids. It's like, okay, if them, then I must be next. So it's more that we can sort of like celebrate and raise them up. So it's more, and it's interesting because over here, I guess with like that tall poppy syndrome, there is a lot of jealousy and things. But I actually wouldn't want friends around that wouldn't want to celebrate or wouldn't want to, praise when we're going through good things. And I really looking at it for more kind of like that celebratory type thing. If one of my friends is doing well, just really praising them, and it's knowing that like, whether it's more abundance or more, or some other energy, or say, for example, friends that are like getting new partners or things of that sort of nature, it's celebrating, that there's more love coming in. And it just sort of shows things on an alignment level as well. It's like, if them, then me. Or, mine must be coming soon. You say someone gets their dream home, it's like, okay, mine must be coming soon too. And it sort of changes the jealousy thing that I think a lot of people can flip into.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. Oh, so the other question I had too was, how can you tell the difference between a relationship that's simply going through like a bit of a difficult change or a difficult season, and one that will come out on the other side, I guess, with that acknowledgement of, I've really outgrown this, or I really have moved beyond this? What sort of advice do you have with people trying to figure out, okay, is this a relationship that's with me for the long haul. Because I guess the way I've sort of seen it happen as well is, are they willing to do the work? Did they sort of like, when you move up, do they come a little bit further up as well? It might not be as fast or an overnight miraculous transformation as what we desire. But I would say for me, that would be like my answer. What would you say?
Yeah. I mean, this is exactly the kind of the crux of, where we are right now of interpersonal relationships. Like, how do you know when it's become toxic? And you can hire somebody, a professional like yourself or me, to help, of course. But I think people can do self-evaluation. So this is how I
Yeah.
look at it. We all have soul agreements. I'm trying not to use the word soul contracts anymore. I really stopped, and I wish I could go back in my books and change the wording, but too late for that. But anyways, moving forward, we need to evaluate. I encourage people to evaluate the soul agreements that they have with their person in their life, whether this is their child, their spouse, their parent, or whomever we're speaking about right now, where you're having a really difficult time. And we evaluate, okay, what am I bringing to the table? What am I learning from this relationship? And what are they learning? Because there's always an energy exchange. There's always a teacher and there's always the student, but it can be both. When you get to a point where you feel like you're circling and it's become toxic, and now that, let's say you're the teacher, you're the person that is paired with this other person, because let's say they've had a lot of lifetimes of trauma and they've been stuck in these loops of self-sabotage and whatever it might be, maybe addiction. And so you are in their life to help pull them out, to help them see a different way, to help give them unconditional love that they've never had before. Maybe that's your soul agreement. And then they're teaching you patience and other things. And what I'm seeing right now is that people are in either resistance mode, meaning they are literally cemented their feet into the ground and they're like, nope, and there's a lot of reasons why. We could spend 30 minutes just talking about all the reasons why people are cemented in not moving forward, but we'll just keep moving. And then there are those that are really trying, that they just keep tripping over their feet, but they're at least they're trying. So if you're in a situation where you can tell that the person is genuinely trying, but they keep tripping over their feet and they just need that love, that unconditional support, and that encouragement, and it's not toxic, meaning it's not pulling you down and destroying you, then we keep going. But if it gets to the point where you clearly can tell, all right, this person is stuck in the cement, is refusing to, because when we sign a soul agreement with somebody, that means that both parties have chosen to play a role, but that means that both parties have to follow through with the agreements they have signed on for. So if the other person isn't actually following through with what they agreed to do, let's say in their divine blueprint ahead of time, it's not the other person's burden to bear to take on the full load. So if you feel like you're taking on the full load and they're dragging you down, and now you're in a toxic environment, and now you're getting sick, and now now it's affecting you physically, emotionally, mentally, and it's clear to you that this person is like, nope, I'm not moving, I'm not budging. That's when it's become toxic, and you have to say, you know what? I'm going to put myself first. I'm not going to be drunk. I'm not going to let you take me down with you. I'm sending you love, respect, but I'm going to put the boundaries up, and I'm cutting the cord, and I wish you the best. And I know I recognize that there are layers to that, depending on like if this is your child we're talking about, or somebody you're married to versus a friendship. There are layers to how easy it is to do that. I recognize that, but that's a lot longer of a conversation. But nevertheless, it's still the same answer. You just have to handle it differently when it's something like your daughter or your mother or something like that,
Yeah. And I guess that's where it's good to be adaptive. And I totally agree with Sarah. Great explanation, Sherry.
Yeah.
You've got to do what you've got to do. And there was a question from Eric that I'll pop up as well. So for those of you that haven't seen the show that I did with Eric, so Eric is a MACE practitioner, which, to sort of like summarize it, he really helps people to delete old identities. So say, for example, we go through, he calls it an upset or a trauma. And in that way, he helps work to delete that old blueprint, that old identity that maybe was not even ours to begin with, to kind of free you up energetically, spiritually, emotionally, and even it feels like physically from a lot of burden blueprint stuff. So Eric said, do you get into coaching or advising people on masculine and feminine differences in thought and feeling processes, and how to honor, harmonize, and take advantage of that in a relationship? So we have talked about and touched on the different hormonal aspects in other shows, talking about, women with oxytocin. So we need to feel that love and that comfort and, I guess more, emotionally taken care of. And I would say, if we're looking at like avoidant or kind of, needing more that nurturing sort of like safe attachment, definitely that's an oxytocin type thing. And then when we talk about the man side of things, a lot of them will hormonally more bond through vasopressin, which is going through hard things together. So if we can use the analogy of, people in the military and they've got through life or death situations together, a lot of the time they're bonded for life because of vasopressin. So, I do kind of look at things and I'll go do things that I maybe sometimes don't want to do, or things that I might think is like really heavy lifting with my partner, just because I know I'm not doing it to like activate that with him, but it does help him to see more seen, more validated, and for me to understand like what he does sort of in the daily as well. But I also notice the difference between masculine and feminine, just talking to friends. And I don't know if it's same over where you are, Sherry, but over here, sometimes men just need space. If there's been maybe, a disagreement or just like stress or things like that, sometimes they'll need space to kind of go and, stop that little pendulum swing and just come back to the center. Whereas sometimes the woman will be, trying to talk things through or need to like understand things or need to feel that love and comfort in that moment of stress. So, we talk about, I guess, like more that avoidance side of the males over here in Australia, and women sort of needing that kind of that comfort or attachment. So this is why it's super important to balance yourself, regulate your nervous system. EFT tapping is a really, really great tool for that. Either tapping,
Love that.
so
Yes.
many videos online, but looking at like, what do you need in that moment to feel safe right now? It might be to do some breath work. How about you? Do you find that it sort of will come up? Is the advice that you get in your sessions different depending on if it's masculine or a feminine? I kind of find it just comes in from spirit, however it's meant to individually for that person.
I mean, definitely what you're saying. It's never a one size fits all approach. And so I never look at anything as absolutes. I don't believe in absolutes. It's literally like just it's individualized. But I think communication is the biggest key factor, because no two relationships are the same. And it comes down to divine masculine and feminine. And that's what has been deprogrammed out of us. Talk about quantum entanglement, and rough epigenetics and modification. They have truly demasculated these men to the point where they have taken out the divine masculine. They've created a very egocentric, like testosterone, aggressive, power-driven the men of that they have created, and very apathetic, very suppressed the emotions. Do not cry, hold it in. Men, men have to do this. So they've really messed with the divine masculine. They also have really messed with the divine feminine, because in all the ancient civilizations that I've ever tapped into in my sessions, it was a beautiful symbiotic relationship where actually men and women both had an aspect of divine feminine and masculine within them. Yet the women held the more creative, creator, unconditional love support to give the men the validation that they required and the confidence to go out and do and create what the creators had vision, the visionaries, right? And so it was a beautiful partnership, and over generations of patriarchy and programming, they have turned the females into trying to make us more masculine. Oh, you don't need a man, and more manly and less feminine, and then they had the feminist movement, and I don't believe in anything in extreme. So I'm not trying to get into a debate right now or trigger anybody. Of course, women should have rights. Not saying that, but they always create these narratives of extremes. And I don't believe in anything in extreme, but they do that. They try to make women now are extremely more masculine. And now the men, they're now trying to make the men opposite. And now they're trying to make the men super like sensitive and like, you know, what my husband would say, wusses. And they're trying to reverse it. So they're constantly, the point is they're constantly messing with us. What we need to do is go back to just calling in the divine masculine and feminine parts for both male and female, so I can embody both, but I can shine in what I shine best in. And it all has to do with communication. So we have to honor our partner. So if like my partner thrives with validation, like the best thing I can do for him is to show my appreciation for what he's done. That means the world to him. If I notice and I say, great job, he loves that. To me, I'm super annoyed. I'm like, I don't need that validation. Like, I don't want that. But I need other things. So it's about communication and understanding your partner and where they're coming from and honoring them and what they need. Again, it's not a one size fits approach. Another couple could be completely different than how I am with mine. But it's a really long answer to that question. But we have to honor where we are, and we're constantly evolving and becoming better versions of ourselves. But we really need to tap into the divine masculine and the divine feminine, not the 3D masculine and feminine, because it's so inverted. It's so convoluted that I don't even know what those words mean anymore. And I think they do that on purpose. They've done that on purpose.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that. And thank you for the question, Eric, because it is important to talk about the masculine and feminine side of things. I think even if we clean up our diets and make sure that we're not getting any of the harmful, toxic microplastics and things, that, as Alex Jones would say, turning the frogs gay, we do see a change in, God, I love him. It's, I think if that was like my alter ego going like crazy, like trying to like wake people up, it would be like a female version of Alex Jones if I was to get super into the ego. I just love it that the way he says it with like gusto and, commitment, exactly what he sees and feels. It's so funny. But yeah, we do see plastics and things like that synthetically. Just looking at like general population, if we compare the men of today compared to the men in the 70s, we see that, and the same with the women as well, things have changed hormonally, and that is by design. So we need to do as much as we can to detoxify, to eat foods that protect and nourish our bodies and our hormones especially. But I'm so glad you mentioned, it comes from the 5 love languages, what you mentioned with your husband. That's an amazing book that really helps you. It's a very short read. You can read it in an afternoon. But it talks about, what we need to feel seen or to feel loved or to feel validated. And my partner and I were actually talking about this last night. I said to him, because we were talking about work and things, and I would say physical touch is both our number one. So we've got amazing compatibility when it comes to that, nurturing each other in that way. And then I said to him, I think my secondary one would be words of affirmation. So it's like, I need to hear the nice, loving things or the cute things, and just words of affirmation, whether it's, doing things well or being like, oh my God, you're like a little angel, or, like sweet things like that. And for him, it would be acts of service. So me going and helping out in his business, or, doing little things for him, like making him little treats in the kitchen or things like that, makes him feel really validated, seen and loved and nourished. So I think when we can understand the ways in which, how do we actually show love? And it's really interesting when you've got someone with a totally different, way of love, and different cultures I've experienced in, relationships in the past. I know there was one that was more of an Asian background, and he was more acts of service. So it's like showing love through doing nice things. But if your like physical touch or your, needing to hear words of affirmation, if someone's like, just bringing you things, you might not feel loved in the way that you need to feel loved. So this is where it's vital to whether to read that book, The Five Love Languages, or to, just feel into like your intuition. What is it, like I've said in the past to my partner, that makes him or her feel like really seen, really validated? Or where do I notice them start to soften as well? Because it might not be as much of you actually hearing words, but just notice like when they soften and become a little bit more receptive.
Yeah. A big part of the collective healing process too is activating that throat chakra, because our voice has been hindered for so long. I mean, you could be killed for saying some certain things in many cultures. Even today, you're not allowed to say things. So I think it's the communication is a big part of interpersonal relationships moving forward. You have to be able to communicate how you feel and be receptive to the other person, and in this interpersonal conflict that comes up. That is surfacing right now because a lot of people are having differences of opinions about many different things. And so it's all about boundaries, but also respecting other people's viewpoints and their belief systems. Even if they don't resonate with you, doesn't mean you can't be friends anymore. So, going back to like, when do you know to cut the cord? Just because, one of you has this belief and the other one doesn't, if you can still coexist as friends and be in a similar frequency and say, you know what, these things are off limits, but I still love you. And let's go, kick the ball around, or let's go to a game, or let's go dinner and whatever. And you can still respect each other, but have boundaries of what are the limitations of what we're capable of, like, communicating. And then I respect, like, let's agree to disagree, right? I think that is a very mature way of communication, like forward thinking and conflict future, is being able to speak your truth respectfully. Like, that's what I teach my children. You need to be able to speak your mind, but you can't just have it gaff moment, because that's my daughter. My daughter is full on, I don't give a, because she's such a rebel, and she's just like, that's how I feel, and I don't care what anyone thinks. And I'm like, I love that about you. Beautiful. But let me humble you a little bit. And it's my job to teach you that, hey, other people's feelings do matter. So it's all about the presentation. So you have every right to feel that way, but you can't come off with the attitude of, well, I don't care what you think. You should actually care to some degree, because we need to have respect for other people and the emotions that may come from the way you present what it is that you're saying. So presentation matters. So we have to be able to use our throat chakra and our voice in a healthy way. And that's like the future of conflict resolution, I believe, is being able to voice your opinion with respect and boundaries. And right now, I don't think a lot of the population has the ability to do that, because there's just so much projection, so much anger, that they're just yelling and screaming, and no one's willing to listen to the other person because they're wrong. You're wrong. Everyone's wrong. I'm right.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's just not going to work.
Yeah. It's so true. There's such a contrast, I think, like never before, in what we're seeing with this vibrational shift. The other thing that Spirit's been showing me around this too is if we can tap back in, like, look at ourselves and remember that we are actually souls that are having this human flesh suit experience. And I think if we can go back to that childlike wonderment of being inquisitive, or, trying to find out, oh, why do I think like that? Or why is that, why am I feeling such a strong reaction? The other thing I want to say, because I know we're sort of at the top of the hour, it's more important than ever from a spiritual protection point of view, because if we look at relationships, and then we look at things that are also existing on the astral plane, entities, archons, whatever you want to call it, Klingons, little attachments, little critters, they're trying to penetrate and divide people more than ever as well. Yes. So we need to, the saying that keeps coming through to me over the last couple of weeks is cleanliness is next to godliness. And I'm even using some witchier things in terms of spraying down the front door, the back door, washing them down with protective oils, whether it's thyme or rosemary, oregano, other things that are sort of highly protective, or what is it? Kananga, which is like a Peruvian blend that's a shamanic, really powerful tool, or Florida water, putting things like that, and washing the floors or other aspects. And it's so interesting because people walk into the house and they're like, oh my God, the energy just feels amazing in here. And both my partner and I being collectively just purging things that we no longer need, and talking about the difference of energy, and really looking at, it's interesting how the negative or the darker or demonic, like you look at some, I guess, the hoarder type situations and things that are out there on the TV shows or out there in the world. And a lot of the time there will be a trauma or something that someone goes through, but there usually is not just the psychological component. They say that, demonics or lower astral beings and things like that like to hang out in a dirty, unclean environment. So I think if we want to put up that extra layer of cleanliness and protection at the moment, whether it's using the magic witchy oils, which is just so much more fun too, because, doing that rather than thinking, oh, I've got to clean. It's like, no, I'm doing a ritual at the same time. It's, the energy put into it. But I think if we can stay protective on that level, as well as young and inquisitive in our minds, and know that we're always growing and developing, and not have to feel so fixed, but look at it as an opportunity or an invitation to learn and to advance and grow. And hopefully our partners and our friends are also of that same sort of mindset, and we can actually have fun with it and be like, do you really believe that? Or where did that come from? Is that even your belief? I think, it becomes a bit of a fun game in this matrix while we're here.
I agree. Like, it doesn't have to be so serious. It doesn't have to be like a hardship. Just evaluate, the belief systems, and take a moment every day when it pops in your head and be like, wait, is this my belief, or can I let this go? And clutter is a big thing. Like, I'm huge on decluttering. It does matter. Take care of your stuff. I have a very clean house. I have a very clean car. I take care of my things. I respect my house. I tell my car, thank you so much for keeping me. I literally talk to my car. I thank my house for sometimes I'll put my hand on the wall in my house and I'd be like, I love you. Thank you. It matters. You give gratitude for everything around you that you have. And I try to wake up every day and I say, I'm so grateful, and I think of all the positive things. So because everybody's so trained, not everybody, but lots of people are so trained to think about what they don't have, what they want, and just negative. And I try to coach people every day. Just focus on all the good things, and then the things you don't have. I simply say every single day, I'm so grateful that I'm in the highest possible timeline. And I'm so grateful that I am provided for by the universe. I'm protected. I'm loved. I'm supported. I'm abundant. Joy flows into my life. And that's all I accept. I literally accept nothing less. And I give gratitude. And I just surrender to the rest. And I mean, I literally live my days like that. I teach my children as much as I can to live like that, and just be grateful for what you have and stop complaining about what you don't have. And everything just shifts when you have your mindset. Really does dictate your reality.
It really does. And I love that saying that Dr. Joe Dispenza has is, what is it? Attitude. What is it? Attitude. Oh, create the attitude of gratitude, or gratitude is an attitude. And it really is. And we know that when we start to step into gratitude, our heart starts to open up. And that's when we're actually going to vibrate and attract more. So you become a manifesting magnet when you start to be in that beautiful place of like really respecting things, really, being in this heart space of thank you or gratitude. We see it with Dr. Emoto's work and the beautiful crystals that form in water when we put the little labels of thank you or love and gratitude on that. So thank you so much for coming on today. For anyone wanting to book a reading or donate to your amazing Aramis Learning Center, because I know that you're physically setting up a space as well, or if anyone wants to book a session or a potion or Hypnotic Subliminal, everything you guys need is in the description box. Is there something you want to leave us with tonight, Sherry?
Oh, wow, we talked about so many things. I think, my biggest advice to everyone right now is don't worry about the person next to you. Like let's get out of the competitive mode and just focus on yourself. Don't worry about what everyone else around you is doing or how fast they're growing or what their capabilities are, and just tap into your deepest knowing, and that has to be good enough for you. And just say, I'm so grateful that everything is aligning for me in divine timing, because it is about divine timing. So if it's not your divine timing yet, doesn't mean you're being punished. It just means that you are not quite there yet. And so just be patient, and remember that our toroidal field right now is so important, that we are all co-creating and re-terraforming this reality to what we want it to be. So everybody watching this, every person on this planet matters. What their thoughts are and what energy they put out in their toroidal field, because it affects the collective density of consciousness and our ecosystem, our energetic ecosystem. We are literally terraforming every single day, oscillating and shifting all the time. And be part of the change. Like
Yeah.
be part of knowing that you are part of the change in a positive way. And that is the greatest gift that anybody can give. Not looking at what the person next to you is doing, not comparing yourself or saying, I wish I could do that. No, focus on what you're good at and be part of the change in the way that is best suited for you. And if we all do that, man, we could have a different world like tomorrow.
Yeah, I love that. That resonates, especially at the moment with what I'm seeing in client sessions too. And I just want to leave you guys with, really have a look at with this divide and this upgrade we're going through right now, really look at like that future identity version of self and how does she or he act, what sort of things are they doing on the daily? And try and hold that center, try and do those activities or live life or, reorganize your home to be that version as much as you can. And keep doing it, keep practicing it, and the rest will sort of shift and follow. It just sometimes can take a little bit of time, but try and stay in that center, that, that pendulum stilling that we
Yeah.
were talking about. Notice when you get a bit of a swing or you start to feel reactive. I think, awareness at the moment is so important. And thank you also, Soul Tribe, for being with us as well. We really value your comments and your questions and things. But yeah, thank you, Sherry. I hope you have a beautiful night. And thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
coming
much
on.
for having me on. I love talking to you. You're like one of my favorite people, and this is such a fun
Same.
conversation. So thanks for having, and thank you for all of you who are watching and taking the time out of your morning and or evening or wherever you are in the world to watch this
Oh,
conversation.
I meant to ask as well, you've got an event coming up at Mount Shasta, I think with Lily Nova and Laura Eisenhower. Did you want to maybe talk about that just so that people, if they're over that part of the world, then they know about
Yeah,
it?
if you're going to be in California, Northern California, July 16th through the 21st, I believe. Don't quote me on those. I think that those are the dates. I'll be presenting Abby Lynn, Lily Nova, Alex Bloom. I mean, so many amazing presenters. Sasha Stone will be having an incredible conference in Mount Shasta in July. So I think you can buy what's it called, virtual tickets too if you can't make it out.
Oh, cool.
People can tune in if they get a virtual pass too. It's going to be a great conference. I'm looking forward to it. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I just love and adore you. Thank you again for coming on and hope everyone has a wonderful night. Love to have you back on soon as well.
Yes. Bye,
Okay.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.